This is an introduction video for my Blender add-on, Essential Materials HDRIs. This add-on is specifically for Blender 3.0 and up because it requires the new asset browser that's included with Blender now. In this video, I want to cover the features of this add-on and go over some basic settings and things that you'd want to know upon purchasing this so that you can set up your scenes efficiently. So first things first, this is a procedural material that I've included called Distortion Metal. What you're able to do is choose the colors, for instance, that you want to use. So you can see this is very versatile, allowing you to really customize how you want this material to look. It gives you unlimited options because you can set both of these colors to different values, but you can also set the amounts. So you can see if I adjust this color 2 position down to a lower value, you get a lot more of that color 2 color coming through. But you're also able to adjust other settings in order to really make it look a lot different than just the one variation. So I tried to include any setting that you would want to be able to adjust in the sidebar over here so that you don't have to dig through the node trees. For instance, a lot of materials, if you just go and download them from a lot of other websites, you'll get something like this, and usually these will be expanded, and they can easily turn into huge bird's nests of wires and all these different nodes, and you don't know what you're going to want to adjust, especially for new users. They don't know what adjusting the IOR would do or if that even would apply to this material. So I tried to package all of these into settings that will actually affect the material. So just by experimenting with these now, you can get really different looks. So for instance, if you turn this down really low, you can see what the difference is between that and turning it up really high. Same thing for the rest of these settings. So it makes it really easy for new users and experienced users to quickly personalize these materials without having to dig through node groups, without having to even open the node editor, and just focus on what you're modeling in the scene. So you could basically just have that node editor hidden and adjust anything that you'd want to be able to in the sidebar over here of the material properties. Another big thing that I did that I haven't seen in a lot of other material packs is I created a bunch of sets of colors. I found a website that lists off all the most popular colors and all the different shades, and I grabbed all of those color codes in order to use them for certain things like anodized aluminum, car paint, painted wood, and glossy plastic. So you can see if you go to aqua glossy plastic, you've got all these shades that make it really easy for you to just drag and drop that on anything and not have to go in and open up the color picker and try and pick the same color in a different scene. Or if you want to use this slate gray in one scene and you're over in another scene, you're like, oh, I want to use that same shade. It's really easy for you to drag and drop these, just like a really broad color palette that otherwise a lot of other material packs, I'm sure, just give you like one glossy material and then you have to go in and customize the color, pick the color you want for it, which you can still do. If there is a shade that's not included, like a really light shade of brown or something, and I don't have that exact shade you're looking for, you can easily drag any of these out and copy them if you want to. Here with this add a new material button, it'll make a copy of that, and then you can just call it whatever you want, like my tan glossy plastic. And it'll still use all of the same settings that specific material uses. Another feature of this is that I have added tags to all of the materials and the HDRIs. So you can see for this glossy plastic, I have plastic, glossy, solid color, monochrome, brown, seamless, and procedural. And I'll cover these really quickly. Color, for instance. Either something is color or it is neutral. If you go into anything like blues, all of these are going to have the color tag. If you go to neutral, Any of these are going to have, even if it has a little bit of color like this mint glossy plastic, it looks kind of like a little bit pink, but it's still kind of neutral. That I went ahead and called neutral. So in the future, as Blender advances the program and advances the asset browser, it should be relatively easy for you to like click on neutral and see every asset in your procedural materials or in all of your materials that uses that specific tag. Another one that I used is monochrome and polychrome. And what that is if a material has just one color, it uses monochrome. If it has multiple colors, like if we go back over to the other metals here, and you click on like this distorted metal, you'll see that I called it polychrome. I also used all kinds of other tags. So if you're somewhere like ground and you're looking for anything with pebbles, there's any material that has that pebbles tag. So super convenient to find what you're looking for quickly. Another big part of this asset pack is the HDRIs. If you don't know what HDRIs are, they are 360-degree photos taken in high dynamic range. And high dynamic range is photography that has been taken at multiple exposures, and those exposures are combined together, which allows you to adjust them. So if you want to turn up the exposure here, if I go into strength and I change this to like 2, you can turn up the brightness of the scene and still have a lot of detail in the shadow areas where you normally wouldn't have that. So if this was just a 360-degree environment and it wasn't high dynamic range, you'd kind of be stuck at this exposure level. If you went to adjust this to like a 5, you'd start to notice a lot of noise in shadow areas. Same thing with the highlight areas. If you started to turn this down, it wouldn't capture the same detail. Now, the other thing with these HDRIs, they're multi-purpose. You can use them for just the lighting. So if we go back here, under film, you have this option transparent. And if you turn that on, it will get rid of the HDRI from the background while still using the light to light your scene. It's a neat trick and something that I think is really useful. And so in addition to using these HDRIs to cast the light on your scenes, if you leave the transparent checkbox off, you can also use them for backdrops. For instance, if I add a cube here, if I set the focal point here, if I click on my camera and I go to the camera properties and I set the depth of field to be on, and I'm going to clear that out and I'm going to pick that box. I'm going to move the box closer to the camera, and then I'm going to adjust that camera setting, the depth of field setting, to like 0.7. The box is really in focus and the HDRI in the background is blurry. So that's another neat trick in order to get really photorealistic renders from your scenes. You set a depth of field on whatever object you want, and anything in the background is going to be blurry. There's another plugin on Blender Market that I do want to mention that's new called CamFX. And so this will allow you to add realistic looking bokeh into your scenes. Now, I don't know how well that this would work with these HDRIs, if you can use the HDRIs to get the bokeh, but if you can, these would go hand in hand together. Another add-on that I just recently saw called Quick Compo. So what you can use this for is you can use these presets that really extends what Blender already has under color management. You can see that you've got filmic and standard and a couple other options here. I don't really use the filmic log or raw or false color. I usually just switch between standard and filmic. And then you've got like medium high contrast and low contrast. So this is another great tip and something that you'll want to use if you want to fine tune your lighting and you're trying to get a really cool looking shot with like really high contrast or really low contrast. But this takes that even one step further by allowing you to easily add the filters on top of this and really give your scenes different looks. So I really hope you found this intro video useful, and if you decide to buy my asset pack, I really hope that you find all these assets useful.